Hi, Henning Pauli here for Joyo. The Joyo Dualklonz. Let's talk about what it is and what it isn't. What it is a brilliant two-channel amp designed by two crazy Italians, Andrea and Fabrizio, who wanted to bring it to the mass market, and Joyo worked with them to make that a reality. And here it is, and it is glorious. What it isn't is a modeler, like some people are saying. It's an analog modeler. Let's forget about modeling. Let's throw that word out the window. That's something the digital world uses. This is an all analog two-channel head. And at any given point, that's what it is. A two-channel head. A vintage channel and a modern channel. And you switch those channels with a switch. You can't even use MIDI for that. You could use a good old-fashioned supplied, it's in the box, analog foot switch, which also gives you control over the cabs, meaning you can have two different cabs connected to this. A Jensen and a Vintage 30, a 110 and a 412, whatever you want. You can connect those, and depending on the sound you're running, use the cab you want. And there's also a not boost, but a low gain function, because on the modern channel, some of the sounds could go into lower gain, and you can switch that with a foot switch. That's supplied, and that's all analog. So what's the big deal? We have a vintage channel. That's not a clean channel. It's usually more clean, but you can push those sounds. They're definitely for the vintagey kind of sounds. And this is a modern channel for more high gain, but not necessarily, can also be lower gain sounds. Just voiced vintage, voiced modern. Now, what's so special if it's just a two-channel amp? Well, each of the sections, the preamp here, and the power amp, all three sections, have tons of different wiring options. Actual circuits that can be switched with relays. Those relays are controlled digitally, and that is where an app or MIDI comes in. And that's what you do with the app or a MIDI board. Now, you can say, I want to switch this to a circuit that resembles a classic British AC tone, or a classic British, let's call it golden tone. I don't want to really name these companies because that's not really what the amp is about. Those are starting points for you to experience and then experiment with, because that's really where the amp gets interesting. Not saying, I have my classic blah 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 tone, whatever. So that's what it is. At any given point, it is two channels. Can you switch in the middle of a song like with a digital amp? Not really, because there is a little bit of a delay on the switching because the relays have to switch. And sometimes even the power amp tubes have to be, changed for the new setting, and that takes a second or two. So no, in between songs with MIDI, you could change the circuits. But you know what? That's not a preset. That's changing the circuit. What does not change? The tubes do not change. The speaker does not change. It is analog. And where the knobs are does not change. These are not digital pots. These are actual analog real knobs. So if you got full gain here on the modern channel and you're switching the modern channel to something that you want with lower gain, maybe that circuit has lower gain to begin with, but you want even lower. You actually have to walk over to the amp like on any other amp and dial it down. So what it is full analog, full tube, but absolutely incredibly flexible if you walk over and change it. Now, it comes loaded with 6L6. Cool, fat, American. Now, if you want it to be more British, many other amp companies will tell you, well, you are free to use EL34s. Well, Joyo is kind of cool because they actually supply the tubes. They come with the amp. So they don't just say, you can use those tubes. They actually give you those tubes. Now, I already took them out of their little cardboard thingy so you can see them. There you go. Oh, actually, I got the 6L6 here because right now the 34s are loaded. So 6L6, 34s, EL84s, and even little things that clamp down the 84s. This is all supplied in the box, free. I don't want to say free of charge, but included in the package. So you bring this home and you want your real AC tone. You're gonna want 84s in there. So take the back plate off. Very simple to do. Make sure the amp is disconnected from the power. Put the 84s in there and you're ready to rock 84 tones. You really want those crunchy British sounds, put the 34s in there. You want the fat American sounds, put the 6L6 in there. Or go online and purchase 588, 165, or I don't know, all these other tubes. KT 66, 77, 88s. Pretty much anything your heart desires. Now, how do you get to those circuits? Well, you can do that with MIDI program changes, but the real fun is the app. What apps? Oh my God, I don't want this, is what you're gonna say. I know. Bluetooth, putting in codes, no, none of this. These Italians made it so easy. Really, that collaboration between them and Joyo resulted in ease of use. Check this out. I'm gonna open my app. It's gonna turn blue at the bottom, and that means it's connected. That's it. That's all you do. Now you can switch the app to a high or low power Bluetooth. If it's low power, you're gonna have to be very close to the amp, which means no one in a live situation can change your amp. If someone in the audience has the app, no, they can't change it because it's only going to be about 1 meter around the amp. If it's in high power, you have a couple more meters. You have like, I don't know, 5, 6, something like this. So you can change it from way over in the venue. So how this works is, I'm gonna change to a big man here on my vintage channel. And you hear a click, click. I don't know if you heard that. And it's showing you in green that this is now switched to the big man circuit. The power amp is also a big man circuit. So in the modern channel, I'm going to switch to my Superstar Blaze. Okay, if you want to know what it is inspired by, you're going to hit the little eye and it's going to show you a little bit of history about amps. So now my vintage channel is grayed out. Why is it grayed out? Well, because my modern channel and my power amp are both the Superstar Blaze. That is showing you that this is red and this is gray, that you still have the big man in the preamp, but the power amp is shared. So the big man preamp is now running through the Superstar Blaze power amp. If you want the big man power amp back, there it is. Now the power amp changed, but now the Superstar Blaze preamp is running through the big man power amp. It only has one power amp, so it is always shared. It is incredibly flexible. And only by changing the circuits, you get a myriad of sounds. Changing the tubes, go even further. Now comes the cool thing. You can go into the combo mode, which is where you can actually yourself change the power amp. So I can go and pick a Jackman in here, which is a nice British crunch, but I can go and pick my power amp and I go to Hot Atomic. And if you do this, this thing is going to freaking eat your lunch. So you can experiment with power amp, preamp combinations. If you then add the tubes, the combinations are endless. And if you go into the inside settings, you actually have control over each relay individually, which will give you over 6,000 different amp combinations with one set of tubes. So that's what it is. It is not a modeler. It is not a digital amp. You actually have to set the controls. It is 2 channels at a time with a shared power amp. It is 25 watts max, depending on the tubes. Depending on other tubes, it might be less. In the manual, it says it very clearly which tubes will get you how many watts. Which also means, warning, for the high gain sounds, which are phenomenal, this will not get ridiculously loud. It is not a 100 watt head. Why do we want 100 watt? Well, because that headroom gives us the attackiness. Once the power amp starts working, we get power amp saturation, and that is not a modern metally high gain sound. So does it deliver these sounds? Yes, but you have to be careful with the volume setting, because otherwise the power amp starts working and bringing its sound into it. So for the high gain settings, I would suggest try to keep the volume where your sound is nice and responsive. That is the limitation of 25 watts, but that's okay, because the sounds are absolutely phenomenal. So there you go. If you want to hear sounds, there's a lot more little demos and different tubes and all that stuff that I'm going to do below. I hope you enjoy this website and find out more about the Joyo Dualklonz in collaboration with Klonz Labs Italy. This is an absolutely phenomenal multipath amplifier. That's what it is. When people ask you, say, yeah, that's a multipath amp. No, it's not a modular. No, it's not. It has multiple paths, and I can switch them with MIDI or an app. Thank you for watching. Now go below for sounds. Sounds. I'm listening. Sounds. See you guys.